Hi guys, my name's Jake Sinfield and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be looking at first-party gaming controllers. I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions and tell you what's my personal favourites. This isn't a scientific list, it hasn't been proven, it's just what I think and what I like. I know everyone can have very strong opinions on what's their favourite controller, so let me know down in the description what you like to use, and we can get a healthy conversation going. So I have here with me two from Nintendo. We've got the Switch Pro and the Joy-Cons. We've got the Stadia, PS4 DualShock, Xbox Series X and S, and the Elite One. There are two other controllers I would have liked to have had on this list. That's the PS5 and the Xbox Elite Series 2. I can't afford a Series 2 at the minute. And the PS5, I don't have a PS5, so I wouldn't be able to give a full review of that controller, and it wouldn't be fair just to look at it and tell you how it just felt without playing on it. So let's make a start with Nintendo. We've got the Joy-Cons. I really don't like the Joy-Cons. I don't think they're a good controller. They're too small for my hands, they're too fiddly. Having them in the dock, I think, makes them worse. It doesn't hold very well. The sticks are offset, which I prefer, but they just don't feel like they're in the right place. The sticks don't have enough travel, you don't get enough movement out of them. The buttons are too small and too close together, so I feel like I hit multiple buttons when I don't mean to. The D-pad just isn't very good. There's no variation in angles. You've just got up, down, left and right. The buttons feel quite harsh and quite stiff. There's no pressure distance in the ZL and ZR. It's just a single button. And the L and R just feel really plasticky. But the main takeaway from the Joy-Cons is their versatility. You can obviously have them in the controller dock, or you can detach them and have them just down by your sides while playing games on your TV. You can sit on your sofa. It's quite a relaxed way to play, but it does take some getting used to, having your hands that separated apart. You can also have them on the side of your Switch and play handheld mode with it in front of you. But again, because of their shape and design, it tends to feel a bit heavy after a while, and your thumbs and shoulders start to hurt because of the awkwardness of the sticks. But they're not only just one controller, you can separate them and use them individually. Adding the bumper bars make the controllers that little bit bigger and a little bit easier to hold. I prefer the red Joy-Con as the joystick is in a better position, whereas the blue one is right in the middle. And again, it's still not great to hold, but it works. It's good for your kids. Adults with older hands are just going to have a nightmare. But other than the issue of stick drift, they work for what they need to for the most part, but they're not my favourite controller. They are £58.99 on Amazon at the moment, which is at the higher end of all of the controllers on the list. But you've got to think it does come with two controllers. Sticking with Nintendo, we've got the Switch Pro. I really like the Switch Pro. It's one of my favourite controllers. It's so comfortable in your hands. The offset joysticks are perfectly positioned. It feels like the old 360 controller, which was a really nice controller. The sticks have decent travel distance. The buttons are a nice size and separated well. Decent click. It feels sturdy, well put together. And it charges with USB Type-C with its built-in battery. The battery has up to 40 hours life, which is really good. You hardly ever have to charge this thing up once it's at full. It takes a little bit of time to charge it up, but once it's charged up, yeah, lasts ages. The downsides of the Switch Pro, the sticks can tend to be a little bit slippery. There isn't much grip on them. There isn't any travel on the ZL or ZR triggers. They're just buttons. And I find my hands tend to get a little bit sweaty while using this controller. When I first purchased the Switch Pro, it was £70, so it's a little bit pricey, but you can now pick it up on Amazon for $48.99, which is a much better price and definitely worth buying, I think, if you own a Switch. But overall, I really like the Switch Pro. Next up to bat, Stadia. What can I say about the Stadia? It tries to be more like the PlayStation, but without succeeding. It feels comfortable enough to begin with, and it's loads better than the Joy-Cons. It has the inset sticks and the triggers like it does on the PlayStation. The home button is in the same place, but it just feels hollow. It has a better weight to it than the PlayStation does, but the buttons just feel very non-responsive. The triggers have a decent range, but the L1 and R1 just feel a bit plasticky. It feels very third party. Also, the middle buttons can't be reached without moving your hand off of the handles. You have to physically move the position that your hand normally sits in to be able to hit the center buttons because of how wide it is, which I don't like. The joysticks have decent travel. They feel quite nice, a little bit better grip than the Switch Pro has. One of the better improvements of the Stadia controller is that because it's meant for cloud gaming, it's Wi-Fi enabled. So when you're using it on your Stadia, it's not running through Bluetooth, so therefore the input lag is just that little bit more reduced, making it a better way to play games on Stadia, even though it's not the most comfortable controller to use. Don't get me wrong, it's not terrible, but it's just not the best one on our list. And at £59, it's now one of the most expensive for the cheapest feeling. But it does have a built-in battery which charges by USB Type-C, which I like. Next up is the PS4 DualShock. If you prefer inset sticks, they're perfectly positioned. There's excellent travel. They're nice and springy, they pop back. The rubber could be a bit grippier. The buttons are all in decent positions and they feel nice to press. The D-pad just isn't very good. They're not individual buttons, but then you don't also get full range of motion that you need for like a fighting game. I like the triggers. The indent sits your finger nicely and they have a good resistance, so it feels like you're actually pushing down on something rather than just hitting a flappy paddle. You also have the trackpad, which when implemented successfully works really well. It's good use for menus and as a button, and you also have the inbuilt speaker, which is a bit gimmicky, but sometimes when you're playing, say, horror games, it's nice to have that variation in sound. It has a built-in battery, but it's terrible. 7 to 8 hours compared to the Switch Pro's 40, it's just not good enough. I find I'm constantly having this controller on charge or using it through a cable rather than wirelessly just to keep it going. And I'm hoping this has been improved in the PS5 version. The only other real criticisms I have of the DualShock is that it's just too light. It doesn't feel like you're holding anything. It also is quite creaky. The build quality doesn't feel fantastic. But overall, I think it's a perfectly fine controller. It has added quirks and different features than the other controllers have, which, like I said, if implemented well in the games, are great features. Considering the DualShock 4 is about 8 years old now, it still holds up, and at $49.99 it's the average price for a controller. So now let's take a look at the Xbox Series X and S controller. The reason I chose this one over the Xbox One is because the upgrades are so small, it doesn't have a substantial effect on the way you play your games, as opposed to the massive upgrades on the PS5. I'll start by saying I really like this controller. I prefer the offset sticks to a PlayStation. The sticks have decent travel, they've got good grip around the outside, but I personally would have made the grip on the inside as well, rather than this smooth bit in the middle. I don't quite understand that, but aesthetically it looks nice. I like the D-pad, the individual buttons, plus also the ability to have decent range of motion for fighting games. The buttons feel good, feel sturdy. It's a lot nicer built than the PlayStation controller, less creaky. The adding of the grip dots on the back of the controller are welcome, as well as on the triggers. I don't feel that it really makes a difference from when they weren't there on the previous version, but it's quite nice to have a different tactile feel. The middle buttons are a bit plasticky and don't feel great, but they have decent range of motion. It doesn't come with its own internal power supply, so you still have to use batteries. I'm not too sure how I feel about this, because if you have a decent battery pack in it, like on the Switch, You never have issues with having to charge your controller or generally running out of batteries as long as you charge it after each session. But having the choice to buy third-party battery packs and different docks brings a good variety. And also, if you have rechargeable batteries, you don't have to worry about maybe needing a second controller if this one's going to die, because you just swap the batteries out. But I think we are getting to a stage now where we need to move away from individual batteries, if not only just to save the planet. It's a much better weight than the DualShock. I prefer my controllers to be a bit more heavy, feel like they're actually made of something and not hollow. The Series X controller is currently £49 on Amazon, so pretty similar to the DualShock. The one aspect that I really like that Microsoft does is the Design Lab. I don't know why PlayStation doesn't have this sort of feature. I know it's not up and running at the moment since they changed to the Series X controllers, but when it's back up and running and the same as how it was previously, being able to design your controller to how you see fit, to what colours you want it to look like, what grip textures you want to have, is such a great way to be able to customise everything to your own experience. And with PlayStation just being able to buy a couple of standard colours, it just really doesn't compete on that aspect. And then last but not least, I'm going to say it, is my favourite controller, the Xbox Wireless Elite. This is only a Series 1, and I would love to get my hands on a Series 2, but for $159.99, you would think it would be the best. It comes in at twice the price, maybe 3 times the price than any of the other controllers, but man is it worth it. It's the same size and shape as the X and S, and it feels good in your hands. Excellent travel on the sticks. You also have the adjustable sticks, so you can take them off and replace them with taller ones or shorter ones, gripped ones or smooth concave. You can also change the D-pad from the individual buttons to the hexagonal, depending on what sort of games you're playing. The triggers have excellent travel. You can also lock them off on the back to reduce the travel distance. You can also add rear trigger paddles, which can be mapped to any button. I don't use these myself because I find they get in the way of my hands, but sometimes it is quite useful for adding a couple on and mapping them to the face buttons, so then you never have to remove your fingers off of the joysticks. Some people might find it gets a bit heavy over time, but I'm so used to this controller now, and as you can see by the knocks and bumps and scrapes, I've really got my use out of it. It also comes in its own very nice hard shell travel case, which allows you to take it around on the go and also keep your accessories in so they don't get lost. Like I said, this is my favourite controller, and if you can afford to buy one of these and you own an Xbox or a PC, then yes, definitely it is worth the upgrade to the Elite. If I was to rate them in any order, I would probably say, obviously the Elite first, X and S second, Switch Pro third, DualShock fourth, Stadia fifth, and the Joycons in sixth. Tell me what you think of that list. Are your opinions different from mine? Let me know down in the comments. And if you guys have used the PS5 controller, what do you think of it? How much does it improve on the DualShock 4? If you like this video, smash the like button so I know to make more content like this in the future. Also, ring that notification bell to keep updated with all our latest videos. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.